President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. vows to add more Kadiwa stalls nationwide to help consumers find cheaper products. Philippine National Police Chief Police General Rodolfo Azurin Jr. considers the series of attacks on local chief executives as isolated cases, pointing out that law enforcement agencies still need to pursue the cases and find out the motive of the perpetrators. The Senate ends its panel deliberations on the controversial Maharlika Investment Fund, or MIF. And thousands of people gather at the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, Germany to protest against giving weapons to Ukraine. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Monday, February 27, 2023. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media channels. I am Hardy Delgado. First in the news. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has attended various activities in Cebu City. During his attendance at the opening of a Kadiwa store, the president vows to add more Kadiwa stalls nationwide to help consumers find cheaper products. Nel Maribohok reports.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said his administration is inclined to continue and increase the presence of Kadiwa stalls in the country as this will address the food crisis and the high prices of commodities. In his speech during the opening of Kadiwa stores in Cebu City, the president was elated over the expansion of Kadiwa Caravan, noting that it would only help Filipinos cope with the effects of rising food prices but also increase the income of local farmers, fisher folks, and small enterprises.
Kaya ito na ang aming sagot doon sa nagiging krisis dito sa ating pagkain, sa ating pagtaas ng presyo. Ay ipagpatuloy po natin ito. At para naman ang ating mga kababayan ay hindi na masyadong naghihirap at dahan-dahan mararamdaman tayo.
The Kadiwa program is a farm-to-consumer market chain that eliminates intermediaries, allowing local producers to generate higher income by selling produce directly to consumers. Also, the president has led the groundbreaking ceremony for the Cebu City South Coastal Urban Development Housing Project. Under the project, the Marcos government will provide around 30,000 housing units for Cebu City residents. In his speech, PBBM said it would be a big challenge for the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, or DSHUD, to build around 1 million housing units each year during his term of office.
Isa po ito sa mga solusyon upang maibsan ang problema ng kakulangan ng bahay sa ating bansa at mabigyan ng disente at komportableng pamumuhay ang ating mga kababayan. Alam ko na ito ay isang malaking hamon, ngunit buo ang tiwala ko na hindi ito imposible.
The entire South Coastal Urban Development Project is composed of 3 phases in different areas in Cebu City, covering a total of 60 hectares. Government figures showed that there is around 6 million backlog in the housing units in the Philippines. Nel Maribohok, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippine National Police is eyeing to have a joint maritime security operations with the Philippine Coast Guard and the Philippine Navy in order to secure the Philippine waters from illegal activities. PNP Chief Police General Rodolfo Azurin Jr. said they are planning to sign in a memorandum of understanding for a joint security operations.
We also invited yung Coast Guard and Navy because we wanted to have a memorandum of understanding na magsanib puwersa kami para sa pagsisecure natin sa mga karagatan natin.
The said operations will elude the human trafficking of persons in the country. Azurin adds the PNP, Coast Guard, and Navy operations will maximize the presence of law enforcement in the territorial waters. The PNP Maritime Group will be deployed near the shoreline and coastal waters. Philippine National Police Chief Police General Rodolfo Azurin Jr. considered the recent attacks on local chief executives as not yet alarming. General Azurin Jr. pointed out that law enforcement agencies still need to pursue the cases and find out the motive of the perpetrators. Leia Ilagan will tell us why.
Philippine National Police Chief Police General Rodolfo Azurin Jr. has considered the series of attacks on local chief executives as isolated cases. Azurin said the PNP is still looking into the possible motives of the attacks. On February 17, Lanao del Sur Governor Mamintal Adeong Jr. and his group were ambushed by an identified assailant in Maging. 3 of his police escorts and driver were killed. February 19, when a Cagayan Vice Mayor Romel Alameda was ambushed by an assailant wearing a pixelated uniform in Bagabag, Nueva Vizcaya. 6 were killed, including the Vice Mayor. February 22, when Dato Montawal Maguindanao Mayor Otto Montawal was ambushed in Pasay City. And just yesterday, February 26, San Carlos Lipa City Chairman Vivencio Palo was also ambushed. For the PNP, the said incident are not yet alarming.
I would say so na hindi pa alarming kasi nga tinidetermine nga natin dahil iba-iba yung mga situation, iba-iba yung mga reason bakit pinatay itong mga to. Sabi ko nga is it's either political, personal, business rivalry or other reasons why these killings are happening.
Volunteers Against Crime and Corruption President Arsenio Boy Evangelista said the incident will consider a failure of intelligence of the PNP.
Kung ang PNP hindi nga nila kayang proteksyonan itong mga elected officials na to, paano pa kaya tayong mga law-abiding citizen?
The PNP said the case of murder in the country from January this year is lower than the same period last year. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The effect of the northeast monsoon reaches the northern part of Mindanao. According to Chris Perez, the spokesperson of the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration or PAGASA, the weather system will exist until the mid of March. Colder weather will continue until the easterlies reaches the country. The La Nina phenomenon is also in transition to neutral condition.
Basta mga observation natin halos normal pa rin naman yung level. Hindi pa ganun kataas dahil nga malakas pa rin po yung amihan, lalong-lalo na dito sa bandang Luzon area. Karaniwan yung talagang napakainit or napakataas na temperatura ay kapag kasagsagan na ng panahon ng dry season dito sa ating bansa. During the months of April and May, doon natin posibleng may tala yung matataas na temperatura.
The Department of Transportation Chief appeals to transport groups to hold a dialogue on the Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program before the planned transport strike on March 6. JP Nunez will tell us why.
Transportation Secretary Jaime Bautista appeals to transport groups who plan to stage a week-long transport strike to hold a dialogue on issues concerning the sector. Secretary Bautista said both government and these transport organizations should thoroughly examine each other's position regarding the Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program or PUVMP.
Siguro dapat pag-isipan nating mabuti yung pag-stop ng operations. No? Dapat mag-usap-usap muna. Let's understand what the issues are. No? Kasi baka hindi tayo nagkakaintindihan.
Earlier today, February 27, different transport groups led by Mar Valbuena of Manibela staged their protest against the memorandum circular released by the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board or LTFRB declaring franchise validity of traditional jeepney and old model UV Express is only until June 30. They are intended to conduct a week-long transport strike starting March 6 until March 12. Valbuena said around 40,000 units of traditional jeepneys and UV Express are expected to join the protests. This will come from the National Capital Region and other neighboring provinces.
Ang ipantatapat po namin dito sa taning na binigay sa amin, sa taning na mabuhay, taning na makapaghanap buhay, Isang linggong tigil pasada.
JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Tagged Onion Queen Lilia Lea Cruz did not attend in today's inquiry by the House Committee on Agriculture and Food over the issue of onion hoarding in the country that causes prices to rise. Thus, the committee asked Cruz to explain why she should not be cited in contempt for not attending the hearing. The panel also wants to know the whereabouts of Cruz during the inquiry.
Where is the whereabouts Lea Cruz during our hearing? That's number one. And number two, Mr. Chairman, may I request that a letter be directed to Lea Cruz why she should not be cited for contempt for failure to attend today's hearing, although she was informed.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, is now preparing the mechanism or guidelines for the distribution of the 1,000 peso inflation cash aid. Janice Henta will tell us why.
Following the announcement of the Department of Finance Secretary Benjamin Jokno that they have already identified a funding source for the 1,000 pesos cash aid as a subsidy for most vulnerable sectors as inflation remains elevated, the Department of Social Welfare and Development is now preparing the guidelines for the distribution of the said cash assistance.
Kailangan po muna nating ma-finalize if UCT or TCT po yung gagamitin po ng ating pong programa. Ano po na pamamahagi po nitong assistance po natin sa ating mga kababayan. Ito naman pong TCT, ito po ay para sa mga kababayan nating labis na naapektuhan ng epekto po ng pagtaas po ng mga bilihin.
Finance Chief earlier says the government will allocate 9.3 billion pesos in inflation cash aid for 9.3 million beneficiaries who will receive 1,000 pesos each as a form of subsidy. However, it is necessary to wait for the approval of the President before starting the distribution of the said cash aid. According to DSWD Assistant Secretary Romel Lopez, they have yet to receive the allocated budget.
Usually po yung mga fundings po na ito ay nakabase po kung saan po yan nakuha po ng Department of Budget and Management. So usually po savings po yan ng gobyerno na pinagagamit po sa atin pong ahensya. As soon as ma-download po sa ating new fundings, maaari na po nating ilabas o ipasok po ng Land Bank of the Philippines po dun sa kanilang mga cash cards.
Meanwhile, even though there is no formal announcement yet as to when will the government begin the distribution of inflation cash aid, DSWD assures that family among the poorest of the poor will be the priority for the said subsidy.
Just the same, ang magiging usual po dyan, yung poorest of the poor po natin, na meron naman po tayong National Household Targeting System for Poverty Reduction. Ito po yung listahan na natin. Maaari po nating ma-utilize, yung kanilang database para po doon sa ating mga kababayan, na maaaring mapasama po sa ganito pong programa.
Janice Hente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And foreign news abroad. Thousands of people have gathered at the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, Germany, to protest against giving weapons to Ukraine. Marvi Delphine will give us the details live. Good evening, Marvi.
Good evening, Elsie. Authorities estimate that 13,000 people took part in the Uprising for Peace protest to urge the German government to stop the escalation of arms deliveries to Ukraine and instead to pave the way for negotiations with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The protest was organized by Left Party renegade member Sarah Wagenknecht and veteran feminist campaigner Alice Schwarzer, who claimed there are as many as 50,000 participants, with similar protests happening in other locations. During her speech, Ms. Wagenknecht spoke about a new strong peace movement in Germany being started by the initiative of citizens, urging the government to negotiate with Russia with the aim of preventing further deaths from the war. Ms. Wagenknecht said the protesters were united by the fact that they did not feel represented by the government of German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock over the provision of weapons to Ukraine. 2 weeks ago, Ms. Wagenknecht and Ms. Schwarzer started a manifest for peace proposal to support the movement, which has been signed by 650,000 people. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Marvi Delphine, reporting live from Australia. At least 59 migrants, including 12 children and an infant, have died, and dozens more are still missing after their boat sank in rough seas near the coastal town in the Calabria region of southern Italy. The overloaded vessel broke apart while trying to land with at least 150 people aboard near the coastal town of Crotone in the Calabria region. Bodies were recovered from the beach, but the exact number of people on the boat when the accident happened remains unclear. Rescue workers said that the vessel had been carrying more than 200 people, which would mean more than 60 people are unaccounted for. The boat, which sailed from Turkey days ago, was carrying passengers from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Somalia, and Iran. Many of them were fleeing difficult conditions and wanting to seek asylum. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said on Twitter she was deeply saddened by the tragedy and emphasized the need to increase the efforts to tackle migration and asylum action plans. We'll share more global stories with you later, but for now, back to you, Harleen.
Thank you, Elsie. For those watching our live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook. The Senate has ended its panel deliberations on the controversial Maharlika Investment Fund, or MIF. On its final hearing, a lawmaker questioned the need to establish such fund despite an existing investment arm of the government. This report will tell us why. The Senate Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions and Currencies has conducted its third and final hearing on the proposed creation of the Maharlika Investment Fund, or MIF. The Philippine Stock Exchange expressed support for the measure, saying that it has the potential to address infrastructure gaps in the country. However, it recommends reconsidering the provision on the distribution of net profits. Under the Senate's version of the bill, filed by the panel's chairperson, Senator Mark Villar, at least 25% of the net profits will be directed to subsidies for poor families, while the balance will be remitted to the national government. The PSE says the net profit should be reinvested for long-term projects.
This will defeat the objectives of growing the fund to a size sufficient to build intergenerational wealth and pursue its investment goals. The Honorable Committee might want to reconsider this section vis-a-vis the avowed long-term objectives of the Maharlika Investment Fund.
Meanwhile, Senator Nancy Binay questioned the need to create the Maharlika Investment Corporation instead of reviving the National Development Company, or NDC. The NDC is an attached government-owned and controlled corporation, or GOCC, of the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI. NDC General Manager Antonio Mauricio says the two cannot be compared, noting that the NDC prioritizes developmental projects over commercial investments.
Our mandates are conflicting in that we are required to earn a profit, but at the same time engage in projects that are developmental in nature. No? We turn it over to the private sector if it is successful, and we absorb it if it's not. That is not how we see the Maharlika Fund as envisioned.
Ang sa akin kasi, nandiyan ka na eh. Itong Maharlika Fund or the Maharlika Corporation, syempre may birth pains to at the beginning. Yung National Development Company, kumbaga napagdaanan niya na yung birth pains na yun eh.
Ma'am, when the
Really, there's a sense of urgency to fast-track development, to fund projects.
Meanwhile, the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, or PAGCOR, proposes to limit their mandated contribution to the MIF to 5 years. This as they took note of their funding obligations to various government programs, including the Universal Health Care, or UHC. Under the Senate's version of the bill, PAGCOR and other government-owned gaming operators shall contribute at least 10% of their gross gaming revenue streams.
Indefinite po yung Universal Health Care, kaya nga po meron din kami proposal na to limit the funding to the Maharlika for 5 years so that we can sustain our other funding obligations and future funding obligations. Because right now, there are 4 bills pending in Congress na hinihingi rin po yung funding namin.
So, yun lang po yung concern. I hope that the UEC fund, of course, it's one of the landmark legislation and priority of any administration should be. I hope it will not be affected.
A technical working group will be constituted to iron out the details of the bill. Jorlene Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God. The National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, proposed over 3,700 infrastructure projects, which will be up for the approval of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. tentatively on March 9 this year. According to NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan, the project is worth of 15 trillion pesos. He added that there are some 190 projects to be undertaken through the Public-Private Partnership, or PPP, in which 98 of those worth 3 trillion pesos are already in the pipeline. Arsenio positively believed that President Marcos Jr. will approve the entire list.
That list is quite a big number of projects. Tentatively or indicatively, it's talking about 3,700 projects worth 15 trillion pesos. On March 9, hopefully that that the president, that the cabinet, the president will approve that. It's bearing the entire list. Entirely, so that and we have already identified what are likely PPP.
The House Committee on Constitutional Amendments has approved the substitute bill calling for a constitutional convention, or CONCON, to propose amendments or revisions to the 1987 Constitution. Dante Amento has the story.
By a vote of 17-2, lawmakers who are members of the House Committee on Constitutional Amendments approved the unnumbered substitute bill for the Constitutional Convention, or CONCON. The bill will be submitted to the Committee on Appropriations for its funding provisions.
9 plus 8, it is 17 in favor and 2 against and abstention 0. With that, we declare that this bill has been approved by the committee.
During the convention, proposed amendments or revisions to the over 30-year-old 1987 Constitution will be deliberated. Meanwhile, the Gabriela Women's Party List of the Makabayan Bloc continues to oppose the proposal. Representative Arlene Brosas stressed the CONCON for charter change is not the solution for the primary problems the country is facing, such as poverty.
We are firm in our belief that amending or revising the Constitution will not directly address the urgent economic concerns of Filipino women and people. Kung may kinakailangang baguhin ngayon, hindi ang konstitusyon, kundi ang batas at patakaran na taliwas sa nationalist aspirations at demokratikong diwa ng 1987 Constitution.
If the bill will be approved, the election of the convention delegates will be on October 30, 2023, simultaneous with the barangay and SK elections. The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, will issue the rules over this. Meanwhile, Representative Brosas added that even resigned members of the Armed Forces of the Philippines must not be elected as delegates.
Sa prohibition, baka pwede isama yung members of the Armed Forces of the Philippines as prohibition. CONCON must be an exercise of civilian supremacy.
But the House Committee on Constitutional Amendments Chairman Representative Rufus Rodriguez believes it is not by existing law.
It will be difficult. It will be, denial of a right of a person to vote if he has no impediment already. So that's always allowed in the election code.
If the CONCON will be pushed through, the delegates are expected to submit a convention report on July 30, 2024 to the President, Congress, and the COMELEC. And 2 to 3 months will be given for the ratification of the consolidated constitutional amendments. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, released the 2023 Cancer Assistance Fund today, February 27. The agency said that the amount, worth 500 million pesos, to the Department of Health, or DOH, is part of the agency's comprehensive fund releases. Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman said illness like cancer is a very serious matter and affirms the agency's commitment to boost the mobilization of cancer treatment in the country. The implementation of the 2023 Cancer Assistance Fund will be based on the guidelines to be released by the DBM and the DOH. 2 security screening personnel at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport, or NAIA, have been removed from their posts following their alleged involvement in extortion activities. This comes after several screening officers at the NAIA Terminal 2 allegedly pocketed 20,000 yen, or equivalent to 8,000 pesos, from a Thai national. In a statement, the Office for Transportation Security of the Department of Transportation said the 2 screening officers were relieved from duty and were placed under preventive suspension. It added that the transport investigators are now preparing to file appropriate administrative cases and will seek the cooperation of the foreign victims for the filing of criminal charges. Meanwhile, Senator Grace Poe, who chairs the Senate Committee on Public Services, says she will ask the Manila International Airport Authority to submit a report on the incident. Poe says she may call for an inquiry should there be other reported similar incidents.
Nung nakita ko yung video na yon, talagang nakakagalit at nakakahiya. Isa na namang problema ito sa reputasyon ng NAIA, ng ating airports.
The Department of Health has already set safeguards in the country against avian influenza, or bird flu. Gladys Tuabi will tell us why.
An 11-year-old girl recently died after being infected by bird flu in Cambodia. The girl reportedly experienced fever, cough, and sore throat. His father also tested positive for the virus. In line with this, the Department of Health assured the public that safeguards in the country are already in place against bird flu.
Unang-una, hindi para dapat mabahala, dapat mapagmatsyag. We should all be vigilant, especially the national government has safeguards for this.
According to Health Officer in Charge Under Secretary Maria Rosario Vergere, the country has already surveillance to prevent bird flu from entering the country.
We have our border controls, may surveillance tayo. Siyempre nakikipag-usap na tayo ngayon sa Department of Agriculture tsaka sa ibang mga ahensya ng gobyerno para tayo prepared din tayo.
The DOH is also working closely with the government agencies to help guard the country. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization advises the public to do regular hand washing, food safety, and food hygiene practices. Gladys Tuabi, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A referendum for the Constitutional Convention that is now proposed to Congress can be coincided with the next Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections, or BSKE. According to the Commission on Elections, it is possible to do so as long as a law may be adopted requiring them to include the said referendum in the BSKE. COMELEC will need up to 2 billion pesos additional funding for this. There are things they have to change about the organization of elections. One is the placement of the municipal, city, and provincial board of canvassers, as currently votes will be counted up to the barangay level only. For this reason, there is also a need to print more ballots, additional precincts, supplies, and a board of canvassers. COMELEC appeals to Congress to finalize their decision on joining BSKE with a referendum before May.
Millions of people in the United States may lose Medicaid coverage, which is the nation's public health insurance for low-income families over the next year. Ruth Bahay will tell us why live. Good evening, Ruth.
Elsie, good evening. Up to 14 million people in the United States will lose Medicaid coverage in the coming years as the federal government begins checking everyone's eligibility for the health program for the first time in 3 years. The government-sponsored program, which now covers more than 84 million people, has increased by 20 million people since January 2020, as the government prevented states from kicking people off Medicaid. Additionally, Medicaid, or the Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, provides health care coverage for more than half of the United States children. About 80% to 90% are still qualified for those programs. The state will send its people a renewal form to update their contact details and personal information, including home address, phone number, income, and household size. People will also be notified by phone, text messages, or email to remind them to complete the form within 30 days, or they will be able to remove from Medicaid. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Ruth Bahay, reporting live from Vietnam. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Elsie Marcos, live from Auckland, New Zealand. Good evening.
The first batch of repatriated Filipino quake survivors from Turkey arrived in the country. 9 families or 25 individuals are welcomed by the Department of Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Eduardo de Vega and some staff of the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport at 4 in the afternoon today. The returned Filipinos also received financial assistance from the government as they begin their lives in the country. According to the DFA, another 40 Filipinos are expected to be repatriated next week.
Nakabalik na mas namin ko yan. Ako mismo yung susunod sa kanila. Ito yung mga unang batch sa mga Filipino citizens nila. Yung mga susunod kami bilang citizen, naayos pa rin kanilang papeles.
Our kasambahay. As the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity.
Good day. I'm Brother Eli Soriano of the members of the Church of God International. I want to invite you to join us in a minute of prayer every day to pray for humanity and the whole world as we go through these perilous times. While safety measures like washing of hands and strengthening of our immune systems may help us through this horrible predicament, there is still no precaution or cure more powerful than God's mighty intervention. And we need His intervention now more than ever. It doesn't matter what religion you are in or what denomination you belong. This is an invitation for all the people around the world who cares for the future of their family, friends, loved ones, and humanity as a whole. Everybody is welcome to pray with us. For more details, you can check out the description box below. Thank you very much, and I hope to hear from you soon. May God bless you.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of Colossians, chapter 3, verse 12. It says, "Put on therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering." Are the reasons behind the news, February 27, 2023. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. Because we need to know. We will always ask why. I am Hardin Delgado. We serve the people. We give glory to God.